Brilliant to have you all with us. I am unsurprisingly excited about this session. I have been stalking this trio, Imran, Peter, and James, for a few months now, and seeing them scatter words of wisdom and images of wisdom about AI and using AI effectively in marketing efforts. The digital marketing, and in fact, just the marketing brains that these three bring together is quite exceptional. And so I'm really happy to have them with us, sharing their knowledge and their insight with Mackrell International. So without further ado, over to you guys.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the intro there. So let's get going, right? So we're super excited, super pumped to be here presenting on this topic. Well, we've actually been presenting on it for about a year and had probably in the region of approaching 20,000 people live on these webinars. So we're here. We appreciate the time that you've taken out. So we understand you've taken time out. So our big promise here is just to share some really good insights with you, make it a little bit of fun and a bit of engagement as well. Peter, your big promise as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and it's nice to be able to speak to you today. I think you're going to have an amazing time, and the reception from previous clients that we presented to has been absolutely outstanding. I hope to be able to deliver the same experience to you today.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. So the agenda, we've got three things on this agenda. We want to look at these three sections. We want to look at the landscape, give you our insight into our thinking approaches. We're going to go practical, right? So we do want to go hands-on in this session. So we got James who will break out and go practical, and there'll be time to ask questions. If you do want to populate questions in the chat, feel free to do so. If it is overwhelming, just look for the one or two things that you can take action on. So use the chat in the mix here as well. And if you've got questions, if something does come to mind, just drop it in the chat. We'll cover it throughout or at the end of the session as well. This is the biggest thing that's happened on the internet for a while, right? So all three of us have been in marketing and digital for a while. My journey started back in 1999 and doing search engine marketing back then. So we've done many things across the last 2 decades. But this, we feel, is like the internet being invented again. So it's really an interesting time we're living in. My background's in the UK, run a business which is accredited by the Chartered Institute of Marketing and Chartered Management Institute and the Digital Marketing Institute. So my background has been in education for a good number of years and consulting, and just spending the last 12 months talking all about AI. I'll get Peter to introduce himself as well. He's got much more. I was in my nappies when Peter was a marketing guru, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I've got about 50 years of international business experience, and about 35 years of it is in marketing. Briefly, my career has been, I've worked for IBM for 26 years. About 2/3 of that time is in marketing, both at UK and European level. Then I was vice president of marketing for a global international publicly quoted company, and that was launched on the Paris Bourse, the NASDAQ, and the London stock market in 2000. We sold that in 2006. I've come back to the UK, and I've got a portfolio of jobs. I've got my own marketing consultancy business. I'm a former associate professor of marketing at the American International University in London, in fact. I also teach at the University of the Arts London. I'm a senior examiner for 2 professional bodies in the UK that Imran's already mentioned. And now I've been very heavily involved in AI with the team at MMC for a while. And now I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for MMC Learning.
Good stuff. And I love working with Peter.
Yeah,
we're on a really interesting journey. And I'll get James to introduce himself as well.
Hey guys, I'm James. So I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at MMC. I've got over 10 years experience implementing marketing processes, and across the last 12 months, trained thousands of professionals and marketers in generative AI. So I've done lots of experiments. I'll be popping up about halfway through the session to showcase some practical examples. So really excited to get into that with you all.
Good stuff. Excellent. Right, let's get straight into it. So this entire AI thing kicked off when ChatGPT hit the market back in November 22. So they released it to the world. Within the first 5 days, they had 1 million users. They're in the top 25 websites in the world. And the last keynote from Sam Altman looked at having 2 million developers on it, 100 million concurrent users, right? So crazy growth that took place. I'm not going to go into that, but what was really interesting was back in 22, the president of OpenAI said to his staff in this article, he said to his staff, don't expect anything to come of ChatGPT. We're just putting it out in the world. It was a wrong time to launch the product. It was just before Christmas. And they just sat around the table thinking nothing was going to happen, right? And people came back and said it speaks Italian, it writes website language, it does this. So that was really interesting. And one thing that I want you to just get in your minds right now is we're all explorers on this journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset, because it's quite important on how you approach this and how you form your views on what's taking place right now. OpenAI and ChatGPT are not the only models in the market. So we've got Gemini from Google that's been released. They've got a few challenges with their model, and also we've got things like Anthropic's Claude. So and also there's open source models as well. All these are competing against each other, and sometimes it gets quite confusing in their competition because they're just trying to outsmart each other. I think Google is just trying to get too ahead of the game. I think just in the release in the last 7 days, I've just been watching their release. They've released an AI version of the search module. Been getting it a little bit wrong, because if you go into Google and type in, how do I get my cheese to stop falling off a pizza? The AI recommendation is use glue to stick it back on. So there's some challenges ahead. But what's really interesting, Peter, you shared this McKinsey report with me. So let's have a look at what's taking place here.
Okay, so the vertical axis is interesting because it talks about the impact of AI on different functional departments in a business. And the important thing is the row across the top, the white text across the top. And I guess for a law firm, the area here, which is one of the most important areas listed at the top, is customer operations and personalization. And I know law firms are all about personalized service to your clients. So the top row, and the one with the biggest impact, is the top right there, customer operations, and in fact, personalization. And that's the biggest opportunity area for businesses using AI as it exists today. So you guys are right in the center of the opportunity here.
Okay, good. So let's, Peter, take us through a little bit of a history here. On
right. Now, I was a bit puzzled about how I should name this next section. I was going to call it a brief history of, in reference to a brief history of time. But when I thought the title is going to turn out to be a brief history of the socio-cultural and commercial impacts of major developments in technology in the last 500 years, I thought I'd just leave it as a brief history of ... So if you go on to the next slide, this summarizes the major technological events, and click again, Imran, the major technological events that have happened since 1447. So I'll just give you a quick run through of that. It started off in 1447 in Germany with the printing press. Then we have the Industrial Revolution in the 1760s and the rollout for commercial and home use of telephones, then electricity. The motor car developed in America with the Model T Ford, 1908, and then the development of mass media communications tools, first with the radio and then the TV. And going across the bottom line, we've got in the 1960s, the rise of mainframe computers, which came along after the Second World War, where computers were used for things like code breaking. They commercialized in the 1960s and really went mainstream in the late 60s and 70s, which is when I started working for IBM. Centre at the bottom there, you've got the introduction of the IBM 5150, which I was involved in Europe, which is the first IBM personal computer. The internet really commercialized and moved from academic and research into commercial operation in the late 90s, early 2000, and then we have mobile phones. And if you go on to the next slide, I'll make a few points. If you look at the timeline and what happened, go back a click, Imran, yeah. Major technological innovations over the last 550 years have happened at an exponentially shorter time interval. They're happening more quickly, and they've got exponentially greater impact on society and commerce. And then in 2002, along came artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. And now if you click the clicker, I would suggest, and in my opinion, that AI is going to have a more impact on society and commerce over our lifetimes than all of those innovations on the previous slide put together. So let's go on and look at a little bit about AI systems. And I'm not going into a technology discussion here, but AI is not just one thing. It's a set of technologies which are shown around this 7-pointed star. The one I'm going to focus on, and we're going to focus on today, is generative AI, which uses some of these other technologies in the center here to deliver what it delivers. And if you look at the next slide, this is how I like to explain it. I was talking to some undergraduate students. They said, well, what is AI all about? And the analogy I use is what I've shown on the slide here. And this picture, in fact, is AI generated by ChatGPT. And it's, if you can imagine a sort of artifact from either a Harry Potter film or Lord of the Rings, think of AI, I said to my students, as a magic fountain you can talk to and ask it to make things for you. And the magic AI fountain will make things like music, poetry, documents, letters, invoices, video, music, and pictures, and it will combine them together in various combinations, which Imran will show you. So it really is, if you like, sort of a system, a tool that gives you absolute superpowers.
Good stuff. And on the theme of superpowers, right? So we saw this report come out from McKinsey talking about the economic potential of generative AI, the next productivity frontier. And I'll just read the first paragraph here. The economic power potential of generative AI, our experts describe how over decades, technology has given people superpowers to go beyond human limitations. And there's 5 areas I want you to start thinking about, because everything we're seeing so far in the AI space is all about generating content. And I'm going to give you examples of that. But I want you to start thinking about beyond content generation. How can these tools be used as well as authoring for ideation, creativity? How can you use these tools to synthesize and interact, bring content together? How can you use AI to do some of your heavy lifting, right? So imagine if AI was doing, you know, on some of the mundane tasks, 60% of the heavy lifting. How do you expand your teams to adapt AI? Well, let's go into look at some visual examples of what we're talking about here in terms of generative AI. So the obvious one is we put in a prompt, we get some text. So I can ask a question like, give me a webinar title that will attract thousands of attendees. Gives you some text and so on. We can upload text into these AI tools and say, you know, make it, in this, the prompt for those was make me and Peter sound inspirational, right? So Peter here is a towering figure in the business landscape, dynamic character, right? So Peter, you're all these things, right?
Well, that's because I'm very much older than you. It's the only reason it's longer than your profile, Imran.
There you go. Right, and then the next one is vision, right? So vision has been around for many years, because in Tesla vehicles, AI vision is there, right? It recognizes the road and traffic lights and so on. But we've not got the capability of using vision ourselves in the later version of ChatGPT. So in this case, we actually went down to Peter's house. We took a photograph of his fridge. He had it nice and tidy in the fridge. And we asked ChatGPT, what can Peter have for lunch today? Right, so it's analyzing his fridge. And Peter, it's actually late in the UK. This might be an evening meal.
Yeah, it'd be omelette tonight by the look of things.
Yeah. And then we've got image generation, right? So we've another type of AI. You can put in a prompt. So this is an old screenshot of one of the OpenAI software called DALL-E. So I can come in and type in an armchair in the shape of an avocado. Creates an image for you, brand new image for you. And, you know, if you look at these images, right, these places don't exist. This city doesn't exist, right? It was created by a prompt. This road doesn't exist. This shop window doesn't exist. So we're prompting things and places. And we were having fun with product ideas. So in the top left, we've got air purifier in the shape of Beethoven's head. Product doesn't exist, but, you know, is produced it. Another type of generative AI is image to image, right? So we can manipulate images, right? So we can now upload images and say, right, okay, give me an alternative version of this image. So a drawing version of the cat. We did have a little bit of fun here. We uploaded mine and Peter's photos and we turned ourselves into Pixar characters, right? So if you don't like our presentation, we've got a backup career. We're going to be Pixar characters.
Hollywood, here we come.
Yeah. So, and you know, maybe even superheroes, right? So, but Peter, you look better as Batman there. But one of the things that I want to just make you aware of here, and again, it's just going back to a mindset thing. These images here were generated in Midjourney, and the prompt was a bomber in Manchester in the UK. And what you're seeing here is version 1, 2, and 3 of Midjourney, and this was only a year ago. And then the latest releases. So if you look at this, right? So the version upgrades were improving in quality all the time, right? So, and this is a version 6 upgrade, right? So we've put in a prompt, it's creating an image, and you can see how we're getting more close to photographic quality. So what I mean by orders of magnitude here is every time there's a version upgrade, it's not like an incremental upgrade. It's a big upgrade. It's like going from a 2G phone to a 5G phone, right? So we missed a couple of versions. So I just want you to be aware of these version upgrades and just where your mindset is when you hear people giving views saying, oh, this AI tool doesn't do this. Think about the different versions. And the next one is really interesting, right? So you can generate avatars now, right? So you can create avatars, another fast-moving area of generative AI. I'm going to ask you a question here, right? So I want you to put in the chat A or B. I'm going to play you 2 videos. I want you to tell me which one is AI generated. So video, I'm going to play you video A and video B. So if in the chat you can put A or B, I'll play you very quickly as a snippet.
Hello everyone. In today's lecture, we will discuss how to create a Hello everyone. In today's lecture, we will discuss how to create a comprehensive digital marketing.
Okay, right. What have you got, A or B in the chat? Okay, we've got a couple of A's coming in.
Lots of A's.
Oh, dominant on A.
Yeah.
Okay, so the prize goes to, and we'll decide. We'll let Keith decide what the prize is. So Fiona, you've got it right. Cherry, right. Alyssa, right, correct. So the answer was both, right? So both of them have been AI generated. And when I was preparing for this webinar, I decided to learn French.
أهلا بالجميع.
And that's not quite
في محاضرة
French.
Bonjour à tous. Dans la conférence d'aujourd'hui, nous discuterons de la façon de créer un
And maybe a bit of Chinese.
大家好。在今天的讲座中，我们将讨论
maybe a bit of Dutch.
Hallo zusammen.
Language, right? So we got the power of language conversions here as well. Let's go into another type of AI. So we've got image to video. So this is another fast growing area of generative AI. So we've got images, right? Can take still images and bring them to life, right? So this is an example of a still image, and it's been brought to life. And we've got another one here. Right. Moving on to another version of Gen AI is music generation, right? So this one's getting a lot of music artists up in arms at the moment. I'm going to play you. There's a couple of tools here that generate music. This is one called Ava. I'll just play you a little bit of it just to show you the quality of what's been produced here. Okay, so that's an AI-generated track based on a series of prompts. And just for fun, this is a relatively new tool called Suno.ai. And I can actually go in and say, right, okay, create a song about me, Peter, and James presenting on a webinar to a legal audience. And this generated the music, it generated the voiceover, it generated the lyrics as well, right? So we'll play a bit of this just for fun.
Imran, Peter, James, they stand to share the future hand in hand. Legal minds and AI trends, marketing that never ends. AI insights lost new friend. Marketing bends in innocence. For lawyers, you'll understand.
So all AI generated.
Sitting back, winding on my laptop up and down.
Maybe I'll move forward from that one. My kids like that, right? So then we've got AI video editors, right? So we've got some really interesting things happening in this space because everything will eventually have AI inside it. Then we got things like voice cloning. So this is quite an interesting area and another fast developing area, right? So we're seeing tools like Speechify and 11 Labs, another unicorn company that's raised, that's got $1 billion valuation, right? So there's many AI unicorn companies that are now attracting a lot of attention and users. Another interesting area is code generation, right? So, me and the team here have been debating amongst other leaders in the AI industry, will coders exist in 5 years' time, right? So right now, and I've been working with many companies who have had quotes for $100,000 web development projects, right? So now these AI tools produce code, so you can get a junior developer and get projects done in probably 1/10 of the cost, right? And it's a real crazy time ahead just in all the space. Okay, so where are we going into the future? So let's touch on some future elements here. So Peter, we've got an AI avatars, right? So this is an interesting area, right? We're seeing a growth of AI avatars. So can you just explain what's going on here?
Yeah, these are synthetic people, if you like, that are being used primarily in advertising campaigns or in influencer marketing, if you're familiar with that, to be the representative and the spokesperson of a particular brand, whether it's McDonald's or a car brand or a fashion item. They're actually not doing it with human beings. They're doing it with avatars, which are photorealistic and getting better in leaps and bounds.
Perfect. And this was an interesting story.
Yes, this was on the BBC News. I found this and shared it with Imran and the team about 2 weeks ago. On the left is a photograph of a British lady who wanted to become a photo model. She sent off her photo. She had a portfolio of photos taken. She shared around various agencies and companies and got no interest. And then she had a technical friend who turned her into an avatar, which is the picture you see on the right. And she then recirculated the photographs of the avatars, got lots of contracts, and now is making quite a good living by sending her avatar out to photo shoots where it's dressed in the clothing of particular brands or wearing accessories or in a particular location. And she's making quite a nice income from it as a result.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Peter. It's a really interesting space, and thank you for sharing your insights on that. So where's it going with these video generations, right? So we've been teased with this model, and this is where we're going with it. So we're probably about 6 months out from seeing this in our hands. So here's a prompt, right? So a stylish woman walks through Tokyo street, and this has been generated. So this is an AI video generated from a prompt, right? So very, very interesting. So a lot of things are going right. So there was problems with the hands and walking before. So this is quite a massive improvement in terms of the physics, is right? Walking, got the shadows on the ground. Another example prompted here is historical footage of California during the gold rush, right? So this is an AI generated video. Another AI generated video here, right? It's like a drone following a white van, right? So again, this doesn't exist in real life, but it's been produced by AI generated content. And we'll play one more in here as well. So this is a tour of an art gallery. So very, very interesting times ahead. I'm just going to play two things from the new release of ChatGPT. So there's a couple of updates that are worth, and I'd probably recommend that you get ChatGPT on your mobile phone as well. Carry it around with you. Peter walks around his house all day with ChatGPT, talking to it and doing all kinds of stuff.
I have conversations with it walking about. It's fantastic. I have an idea and I ask ChatGPT about it and it remembers it for me for next time. It's wonderful.
Brilliant. So I just want to show you this, right? So this is the new release, and there's many feature updates, but there's two I want to show you here. So here
we asked the live audience on X to submit a few requests for what they would like us to try out here. So I will take a couple of prompts.
Try to do English Italian. Sure, let's do it. Hey, ChatGPT, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
I'm doing great. So I would like you to function as a translator. I have a friend here who only speaks Italian, and I only speak English. And every time you hear English, I want you to translate it to Italian. And if you hear Italian, I want you to translate it back to English. Is that good?
Perfetto.
Mark, io mi chiedo se le balene potessero parlare, cosa ci direbbero?
Mike, she wonders if whales could talk, what would they tell us?
They might ask, how do we solve linear equations?
Potrebbero chiederci come risolviamo le equazioni lineari.
Sicuramente sì.
Certainly, yes.
Great. Looks like it works.
So that's an interesting. I'm going to show you one more because I think vision is about to take another leap as well. And this is really interesting because I've been testing it with my daughter who's studying for her exams. She's dyslexic and studying for her exams at the moment, and I'm sure many of you are parents on this call. And this was a very interesting leap because you can take pictures of exam questions, and ChatGPT can help you with it. This I thought was quite a major leap.
You've just seen the.
Whoops, I got too excited. I'm ready when you are.
So, ChatGPT, what equation did I write down there?
Ah, I see it now. You wrote down 3x plus 1 equals 4.
Yep, exactly. So what's the first step I should take to try to solve this?
The first step is to get all the terms with x on one side and the constants on the other side. So what do you think we should do with that plus 1?
Okay, I'm going to try to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
So I'm not going to play the whole video, but you get the kind of picture, right? So this is taking place live. I'm getting advice to move things around and get instant feedback, right? So it's quite an exciting space. Before I hand over to James to do something practical with you, because I want to get away from these slides, I really want you to start thinking deeply, right? There's people there's so many different views on AI, everywhere from being very negative to people saying I've used it and it's not very good, to all the way up of people getting excited and saying this is going to change the world. So there's so many different views, and I want you to really start thinking about and there's so many different opportunities as well. And sorry, I like my cheesy quotes, right? So you can go to the ocean with a teaspoon or a bucket. The ocean doesn't care, right? So you've got to make a call on the opportunity ahead. I'm going to share one formula with you. I usually do a longer bit on this, but this is my favorite Jack Canfield's success principles formula. E plus R equals O, right? So the event taking place, depending on your response, is going to determine the outcome, right? So, and this can apply to anything in life, right? So whatever the event is, whether it's, road rage or challenges with your children or whatever, your response and your responsibility will determine the outcome. And you've got to make a call. Are you going to lead, manage, or watch, right? Are you going to lead in this moment and this expansion event that we're going through? Or are you going to manage? I think every single business individual in the world will get hit by AI. So some people, and it's okay to manage, you might be managing projects, not a good idea to be watching what's taking place right now. And the ROI is super quick, right? So if we were 3 years ago, we had to invest in an AI project, we could have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on an AI project, and it would take us years to get a return. Now you can spend $20 on ChatGPT and see an impact and a return straight away. I like this quote from Sam Altman: if you give people better tools, they will do amazing things. So we'll go into a segue and over to James.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So I want to show you a practical workflow. So I'm going to jump into ChatGPT. And the workflows that I want to show you, I've been using them for my own use cases. One, to help with business development with clients and closing deals with clients, but also saving myself a lot of time as well. So I've been taking activities which typically may be taking me 3 days to complete, and then using AI to convert those activities into 2-hour tasks. So I'm going to jump straight into it. So I'm using ChatGPT here. I will just highlight that I'm using their most recent and their most advanced model. So it's called GPT-4o. They recently rolled this out to all users. So even if you've got a free account on there, it's accessible. But I'm going to put in my first prompt, and I'm going to get it running. And as it's running, I'll kind of explain what's happening with my prompt. So I've come in and I've said, as a world-class marketing manager, so I'm given it a role that I want the AI to behave as, specializing in the legal sector. I'd like you to review my legal services via the link provided, identify and list all the potential objections that clients might have about my service, and then for each objection, provide a detailed explanation and suggest effective strategies to address them. Ensure your analysis is thorough and actionable, right? And for this particular example, I gave it a link. I just chose one of the big legal firms, and I give it a link to one of their legal services page. So the idea here is I want to try and ideate, right? I'm kind of in this brainstorming phase just to understand what are the potential client objections, and what does this mean for me? You know, how can I benefit from this information? So we see here things like high cost and its accessibility and personal attention. It's going into detail on all these potential objections about these particular legal services. And I do this kind of workflow for my own products as well. So you can imagine from this point here, it's giving me like really detailed insight to all of these objections. So if I'm like marketing these services, I might be thinking about content assets, which I might produce around each of those objections to try and help address them. But what I want to do is actually do a script. I want to help my representatives who might be going into a meeting with potential clients. So I can do this as a prompt. So I can carry on and have a conversation. So my next prompt, I just put it in to get it going, is create a detailed script to help my representative overcome client objections during meetings about our legal services. Include specific dialogue examples for each objection, along with clear guidance notes on how to deliver those responses, and present the output in a structured table format with the following columns: objection, script, guidance notes. So you can really get into detail with the formatting that you're giving the AI. And check this out, what it's done, right? So it's taken each of the objections, potential objections from the above chat, and then it's given me a table format, right? I've done this similar exercise. So it's taken each of the objections, it's given me a script that somebody could use in a meeting, and also guidance notes in terms of how that should be delivered, you know, during the meeting. So this is great content, which I can be handing over to my rep. At the moment, it's great, but the problem is it's inside of the AI. I want to get that out of there and start distributing it around the organization so people are better prepared for client meetings. So I can do something a little bit different. So ChatGPT has got this function called GPTs, right? So I can add a GPT. Let's just try that again. Right, I'm going to add something called DocMaker. And to think of GPTs, think of these like apps, different apps on your phone. So all of these things have like superpowers. So what I've done so far, I'm around a table, I'm having a conversation with my work colleague, I'm briefing them and they're giving me answers. But this particular colleague that I'm working with doesn't have the skill to produce a Word document. So what I'm going to do now, I'm calling in a different colleague who is really skilled at creating Word documents, and I'm going to give them the job. So I'm going to say, take the say, not that, sorry, that's the wrong thing. I'm going to say, create a guide in Word document format to help our representatives better understand and address client objections. Ensure the document is professionally formatted with clear headings, bullet points, and tables or charts where necessary. Make sure the content is clear, actionable, and designed to improve client understanding and engagement. Right, so I can give the job over to DocMaker. You can see that it's starting the action for me. And what it will do is it'll go away, it'll give me a link. It takes about 5 minutes to generate. You can see here, it's generated saying download guide. And this is the guide that it's produced for me. So now I've got this fully formatted Word document with common client objections that I might have for a particular legal service that we're offering, right? Yes, this will require some editing, but can you see the time saving there, right? So if we're offering multiple different services, we can very quickly create guides around each of those services, which will help us better understand clients when we're having conversations with them. There is some other prompts that I want to share with you. So hopefully that was useful, and I will share some of these prompts in the chat with you guys as well. So the next prompt I want to do is, let's say you've had a client meeting, right? And you've recorded that meeting in some way. So you might have some like minutes from that meeting, or you might have a transcript of that meeting. You can actually upload those documents into ChatGPT. I have privacy settings on here as well, so everything remains private. And I can get it to produce a report based on my meeting. So check this prompt out. Act as a business consultant. Here's a transcript of a recent meeting I've just had with a prospective client. So you're aware of who I am. My name is James. Please constructively analyze the meeting and produce a report that shows my strengths and weaknesses, frameworks which will help me improve my performance, especially in winning clients, a sentiment analysis of the call, any missed opportunities for questions, inquiries, business opportunities within the calls, specific advice on how to better handle potential client objections. And check this out. So it's produced a report for me based on all of that criteria. Okay, so very detailed report, which is going to help improve my performance or colleagues' performances on their next meetings. I've got one final prompt to show you. And this one is to really just showcase the data analysis capability of ChatGPT. So I'm just on my second screen here. I'm going to drag something over. Okay, so what I did, I went over and I got some sample data online from a website. So this is real estate data from the US. So I'm going to, I've dropped some data in here, and I'm going to say to ChatGPT, provide me with 5 insights from this data. And I'm going to, it takes about a minute or so when it's analyzing data. So I'm actually going to pull up a workflow just to show you how I analyze this data. So this is kind of real estate data. It had areas broken down by kind of region and so on. But you can have conversations now with your Excel files. So it's given me top 10 insights from the data. I then said, give me 5 charts that I can include in a presentation to a client. It's actually gone ahead and produced visual charts for me based on that data, right? I then said, create a slide presentation for me, which I can use in a meeting to present this. It actually produced a slide presentation. Here is said slide presentation. Real Estate Marketing Insights 2022. Introduction. All of those visual charts from the chat that's come over. Right, so hopefully you're starting to see the power that this can bring, especially when it comes to better client relationships, engagements with clients, but also those time efficiencies and productivity that you can gain from all of that. Back to you, Imran.
Okay, good. Thanks for that, James. We did have a question in the chat about privacy, which is quite critical. We're using a Teams version of ChatGPT, which means our information is not getting sent back and being trained, data not being trained. So there are privacy settings in ChatGPT as well, so they probably need to make sure they're switched on.
Do you want me to very quickly share that? Because it's literally, so there's a couple of options here. So basically within ChatGPT, for example, they have something called data controls. They they kind of named it in kind of a way to try and get away, say improve the model for everyone. You have that setting switched off, and it means that your data, any chats that you put in, will not be used to train the model. You also have something called temporary chats as well. And these temporary chats, nothing at all is saved. It's not even saved in previous conversations. It's like browsing incognito online. There's no history, no trace. Nothing's used to train the model.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks for that, James. So that's really useful. So what we really kind of got, where we're going with this is, you know, these tools are more than just generating content. Think about how else these tools can be used at different levels. We're now going to just go over to back over to Peter. We need some words of wisdom, right?
I'll do my best.
We need some going from the tactical to
what I'm doing now is something you're never supposed to do in a presentation, which is speak to a mixed audience. So I'm speaking to marketing people and senior legal executives, as I understand, and some of you may have only a beginner position in the organization. Some of you may have got an MBA from Harvard and law degree from Stanford and so on. So I'll try and adopt a middle ground, and hopefully in this section everybody will find at least one or two things of interest. If you go on to the next slide, Imran, the first thing I'd like to talk about is the two ways that ChatGPT can be used. The first one is in a tactical example, where in tactics, it's all about day-to-day operational things. It's the mission statement for the organization. It's delivering quality service and value to stakeholders, particularly focusing on clients. It's about throughput, it's about cost reduction, it's about efficiency and operational activities. So the metrics here are things like billing, margin, and market share. On the other hand, at a higher level in the company, perhaps the partner or senior partners is interested in the next word cloud, which is all about strategy, which is typically something done with a senior leadership team. And this is based on longer term decisions about the direction of the firm, what sort of markets you're going to enter, what sort of clients you're doing, what particular services you're going to do, what you're going to do to differentiate your organization from your competitors. It's about long-term growth, vision. So the focus here is on EBITDA, return on investment, and return on capital employed. It's all about shareholder focus, primarily the investors or the owners, the partners within the firm. So there's two ways of looking at AI and how it can support both these activities. If you go on to the next slide, the first way most people are using ChatGPT is what James and Imran have shown you. First of all, it's operational, it's tactical, it's doing the heavy lifting, it's about doing things quicker, faster, higher quality, cost reduction. Now, the focus on that, this is where most people start their GPT, their chat journey. If you hit the next click, Imran, this is where people start operational, tactical things day to day. So it's about writing documents more quickly, doing research, doing data analysis, creating images to put on brochures or web pages or social media posts or brochures or literature, company reports. However, I would note to recommend that even executives and senior partners in the firm also need to understand what can be delivered by ChatGPT and AI systems. They're not going to do it operationally. They might never touch a keyboard and do any AI prompting, but the senior partners and executives in the company need to know what it can do for their business operationally, and also how it supports long-term resource planning and headcount and staffing costs. The more advanced companies, the leader in any industry, go on to the next section, Imran, are the leaders in most markets, and it's the same in US law, are moving ahead with AI at a more strategic level. They're not just looking about operational things. How can we do things more efficiently? They're looking at how to be more effective. How can we do the right things? How can we redefine the market? How we can resegment the market and get a greater share of it? And they're using AI systems in a different way. And I've got some use cases on the next slide. So if you click once more, Imran, here, you'll see that this area is where leading companies in a given sector in law or finance or banking or insurance, whichever professional sector people work in, the leading companies are looking at AI in this way. They're looking at it, how to get ahead of the game, to take a leadership position within 3 to 5 years. Now, the firms that aren't doing that are going to be the also-rans. Some people are saying, oh, it doesn't affect me. We're a traditional company. We've always done our banking or our insurance or our legal work in this way, and we're going to continue to do that. Just be careful if that is your worldview that you don't get left behind. If you go on to the next slide, here's these are the top 10 use cases for AI in the US legal sector, US law firms. And I'm not going to go through all of these because you know much more about these topics than I do. But I've got some backup research, which I won't show for confidentiality reasons, and it tells you which US law firms are doing each one of these use cases. So just have a look down that list, see, and perhaps think about which of these you are doing or which one of these you aren't. If you click once more, Imran, there's two sub notes I put on here. The first one is that most widespread use, as I've said, is about the operational tactical things, cost saving. More strategic use is slower, but some firms are there. And you're starting to see a sort of a leader pack developing out of the throng of law firms. There are leaders emerging because they're using AI in a strategic way. But you definitely have to start with the tactical operational to get the experience and to get the sort of cost reduction issues in. Go back. I'll go one, yeah. Before I go on to the next section, and I'm nearly done now, I've got just a few more slides to go, just ask the question, does anybody recognise who this individual is? And I ask my students, and if you were betting people, I'd have a bet with you. My students never win my £5. I say, who's this person? And in fact, it's Charles Darwin, the British biologist who invented the theory of the evolution of species. And when you talk about Charles Darwin, everybody thinks of this quote, if you click once, Imran, everybody thinks Charles Darwin talked about the survival of the fittest. Charles Darwin never said that. What he actually said was this: it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but it's the ones who are most responsive to change. And I would commend that approach to you in your businesses, as I say to all the other people when I'm talking about AI. If you move on to the next slide, just a quick run through about some use cases and how AI is used. Now, James talked about content generation. And here's a little framework, and you can, in your own time, if you wish to, consider how much resource you're using for each of these activities in just basic content generation, from creating it to editing it and distributing it and checking it and reworking it. And I've got 100% of the human resources in there. So there's 10 of the brown slabs on these bar chart. It shows you what percentage out of 100. So the top, you've got 20%, second line, you've got 10%, 40%, and so on. That's where people are today from research that I have done. If you click against now, Imran, this is how that has changed when people are using AI. So the pure human-only resources has dropped. It's gone down from 10 units to 7, but AI has filled in a lot more than the 3 human resources that you've lost. AI is very powerful in a number of things, and they're highlighted here in the general content creation. And I'd make the point that although some of these are now shown by red AI boxes, every AI box needs a human operator, a prompter, somebody to give it the instructions, assess and analyze, and edit the content that it gives you back. So think about how you're doing that in your law firm. This is a quote from Forbes, and I've used the British Special Forces quote, "Who dares wins." I've changed it to "Who cares wins." And you can see there, in the next 5 years, they're saying that it's not we're going to reduce the human resources in our businesses. It's all about replacing jobs with a quality and augmenting what we do with AI capability. And if you go on to the next slide, this is a lovely quote. This is from an American lady, a philosopher, an activist, a civil rights worker called Maya Angelou. And she was talking about how customers, or in our case, clients, feel. And what she observed is people will forget what you said, people forget what you showed them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And this is a general principle that marketers know very well in marketing communications, but it's always a very important factor in service delivery professions like advertising, like marketing, and like legal firms. Your clients, when they come away from whatever process you're helping them with, it's how did they feel before, during, and after the process? Did they get the result they wanted at the cost they expected? That's what they'll remember. They won't remember the detail of what you said to them, what you showed them, the documents, the briefings. They'll just remember the result. And it's the same with AI. Next slide. So I'll just finish here. AI is a huge opportunity. And I'll just observe that whether you win or think you can, or whether you think you can't, you're going to be right. Back to you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Peter. Right. So this has been a bit of a marathon, 60 minutes here. We will answer some of the questions in the chat. I'll just spend 60 seconds on just sharing what we do beyond this. We try to give you as much as possible in the 60 minutes. If you did want to take it one step further with us and you want us to help you level up your AI knowledge, we do offer a series of educational services and packages to help individuals, leaders, organizations. So what we do is we deep dive into these topics: text, ChatGPT, AI, image, audio, video, mixed with a bit of strategy. So we deep dive into some of these topics and do virtual days around them. And there's ways for those of you who want to badge or an accreditation. We do have services just to take knowledge to a higher level. And we will share the details of that in the chat. There's a number of ways if you wanted to take it one step further. There's a couple of options here. If you were looking to enroll onto something straight away, and I can see you've already started a conversation in the chat about should I pay for ChatGPT and how do you take it further. There are ways to enroll on some of this training. James has shared some details where you can get the information and pricing information. If you just want more information at this stage, you can just drop a yes in the chat or drop James an email or even contact Keith. I'm sure Keith will circle back to us. So that brings us into a Q&A section. Right, Keith, that was a bit of a marathon run there, but we squeezed in quite a bit there.
Well, I think it interesting getting the questions in the chat about using ChatGPT, and I think one of the great things is that people are people within Mackrell International family are already responding. I would echo John to Amy's question about should you use the paid version. You get what you pay for. I'm sure we can probably get some free legal advice, but it's about getting value. And where the value comes. But it would be interesting, James, Peter, and Imran, to get your take. You talked about how fast AI is accelerating, and I'm pretty sure you will also say yes, use the paid for version. James, you did, but just maybe expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll answer the question in a different way, and I'll throw it back to Peter. I just want to give you a view in what's going to happen across the next couple of years. Right. So we're moving into a phase where we're becoming AI assisted, right? So the next 12 to 24 months, we'll find ways of automating our mundane tasks, right? So that's what we'll start off. Then we'll move to a phase where we're looking at transformations in the way we work, transformations in the market space. And then 3 to 5 years' time, we'll have AI first businesses. And it's a question that you'd ask yourself, right? So if you were to start your business again with a blank sheet of paper, with your proposition to the same target audience, how would you set your business up or your legal firm up, being an AI first business, right? And the big change will take place is when, and I'm seeing this in the agency sector. So the agency sector has been hit really hard, so marketing agencies, because there are clients turning around to them and saying, actually, if I will only hire an agency if they know how to use AI, right? So we're going to see that ripple through, and that's an impact. So a bit of a long-winded way of answering the question, which means get ahead of the game. I'll throw it back to Peter. So paid versus, we talk about a lot of tools. It's a common question we get thrown. You know, what tools paid versus, and I'll just get Peter to share his experiences on that.
Absolutely. Well, the fact is, as we mentioned in the briefing, the ChatGPT 4.0 is the latest one, and it is free. And everything that James has showed you, the text generation, a lot of the add-on GPTs and the image generation is included for free. The paid version is only $20 a month per user. So it's not that onerous. So $20 a month. What's the difference? There's a limit on how much work you can do before it pauses you with the free version. There's a cap on it. You can do so many searches, so many prompts, so many images. And sometimes it says, please wait 5 minutes. You've used a lot of time. Other people want to use it. That cap is much higher in the paid version. Apple recently announced that in the next version of iOS 18 on mobile phones and the new Apple tablet, that's going to have heavy AI component because Microsoft, Apple is going to put that in their operating system, iOS 18, and it's going to have lots of AI functionality built into it. And finally, I just got an invitation from Google yesterday. I use Gmail, the free Google account. I can try for 1 month and then pay £18 a month to have an AI assistant built in to my Gmail if I want to. I'm going to wait and see how that goes and what they're going to offer to see if £18 a month is worth it. But again, it's not a huge amount of money. It's coming. I just would try it even as a taster and then decide if you want to pay for it or not.
Sounds good. I can see John's dropped a detailed comment in there. I mean, John, if you're happy to come off mute, love to get your insight into what you're doing inside the organization.
Right now, we're just getting started. I think one of the, for the benefit of those that weren't at the AGM earlier this month, I think one of the takeaways, one of my biggest takeaways from it in the sessions that we had was that we're not yet behind the curve on AI compared to kind of other, at least in the US, other macro firms. I think the European, international, and Asian firms are ahead of where we are here in the States in their use of AI. We're not behind yet, but we're going to be in 6 to 12 months if we don't adopt and adapt. And so coming back from the AGM, I put a committee within my firm that I'm spearheading that is comprised primarily of our associates. It kind of serves two purposes. It's one is to work on what we're going to do with AI, but then I'm also trying to get our associates involved in some aspects of kind of firm management and firm governance. And we're going to investigate and figure out how we're going to use and deploy AI strategically within the firm. So I'm working on drafting an AI policy that we're going to work on before we then get it to our executive committee to sign off on. And then we're going to be investigating potential AI tools. I've tasked everyone with coming up with a list of AI tools that are out there that we could potentially be using within the firm on client-related matters. And then they're going to report back. Everyone's going to report back to me with lists, and we're going to kind of call that master list down to a smaller list of products that we decide as a group we want to demo to figure out kind of what's out there in the marketplace that we could use within the firm apart from ChatGPT. And so kind of that's where we are right now. It's a very new committee, but I anticipate 3 months from now, our use of AI is going to look dramatically different than what it looks like right now.
And that's a great initiative. And it's one of the things I'm recommending to a lot of businesses and the teams, at the very least, to commit to having 90 minutes per week where the team gets together and shares the tools, their ideas, and so on. So that even having the committee and that consistency is going to be very exciting to see what people come back with and see how the brains work at the same time as well. So it'll be very, very interesting. In terms of AI policies, I think it's worth having a look at Microsoft's AI policy and the BBC in the UK. Have a look at, if you click on the website and go down to the AI policy, I think there's things that you can learn from theirs who have advanced their policies quite a bit to see what they have in there.
But it's interesting. Angela makes a very good point, which is something that we shared in the Mackrell International AI Insights group, which is one of the first things you can do is use a series of prompts on ChatGPT 4.0 and ask it to produce an AI policy for a mid-sized law firm in X jurisdiction with Y number of employees, combination of lawyers, attorneys, and it gives you a really good starting place, which you can then enhance, as you say, by looking at the BBC site.
Totally. So here's where I want you to take your thinking much further. So instead of just saying to ChatGPT, produce this for me, how you would go one step further. And I'll give you an example of what I did when we were recruiting for our webinars. So I had some email copy, and this email copy generated 200 more signups than we were expecting for a webinar. And what I did was I said, okay, take this copy and rewrite it according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So it completely rewrote it based on another famous model, right? So everyone's got human needs. and the conversions went shot through the roof, right? So what I want you to start thinking about is not just the basic prompting, and hence we were trying to show the workflows there. So think about, right? So you want to almost kind of train it, make it your assistant, right? So if it gives you something back that's rubbish, and it tell it, you haven't done a good job there. Go away and do better, or go and have a look at the BBC Awards, go and have a look at this. I want you to produce something at the level of quality as this. So that's how you go way beyond pushing the limits. And the more you push, the more deeper you go. You're going to be very surprised by the results. James does something which I wouldn't recommend. James offers ChatGPT $200 to improve the results. so I wouldn't quite. I mean, he has got his credit card details, so I'd laugh if it takes his money at the same time. But
it's a $200 tip, and I've stopped saying that now just in case.
But that's just a thinking. I just want you to move towards going deeper in your prompting and stage prompting. And we do this on a full training days. We spend days just going through the different tools and techniques and going much deeper. And which is what I was saying about a lot of the stuff that you see out there about prompting, and it's very superficial. So become explorers. Go to that level of detail and depth to get the results that you want. So thanks for sharing that, John. That was very good. Excited to see where you're going to be. You'll be the leader in legal AI in 12 months' time.
Well, we'll see. I hope so. We'll see.
Hannah's got a really good question. Again, tapping back into that privacy issue. Is it safe to upload any document into ChatGPT paid version, or are there certain restrictions or precautions we should be aware of?
Right. So my view on so we've got the team versions which have got more privacy and more and so on. I mean, I'd be hesitant to go all the way by sharing client information on there. So I would have a limit to what you're doing. Like I said, we're in this phase across the next couple of years where you'd have to have a very stepped approach. I wouldn't put client names in there unless if you've got this private version. What I see the bigger firms doing across the next 3 years is building their own internal LLMs, right? So that's where the future is going to be. You will have open source software. Apple is quiet at the moment on what they're doing with AI, but I'm expecting in the next couple of years, Apple, will have super chips in our mobile phones, right, capable of doing AI and having a large language model on your phone, right? So it's going to be pretty crazy in the future. So at some point, there's this transition. If your organization has huge amounts of data inside your organization, then another pathway is to look at building your own LLM internally, and so on. So people are at different stages. So I would move forward positively, but with caution in using this technology.
So Imran, the key is in prompting.
Yeah, prompting is. I'll get Peter's views on that as well. Prompting is an interesting one, and also John, when you get into doing this with your team, I'm probably going to spend another hour if I talk about this, but very, very briefly is, what is the skill set required to be successful in prompting? So that's another debate I'm having with many organizations, because I've come across people who just can't get ChatGPT to work, right? They're even scared of it, right? So a lot of us have been brought up in watching AI movies like Terminator and so on. So there's already this scare in people's minds, and this is scary stuff, right? And John, some of your team is going to come back like that and have perceptions, and there's kind of a mindset shift to do. I mean, some of the graduates I'm recruiting in the UK are like English graduates and psychology graduates. They're better at prompting, right, than people coming from different industry sets. It's just that we've got all this power in our hands, right? So we can create images, we can create videos. It doesn't mean that we're actually good copywriters, or we understand design theory or color theory, right? So there's still a base level of knowledge that's required for you to really get good at some of these things.
The way I've thought about it, to answer your earlier point, is if you think of ChatGPT as a new hire law graduate, and you invite it to a meeting and you ask him questions or her questions, they're a bit shy and they come up with a sort of safe answer. You say, no, I want you to think more deeply than that. Come on. Just after, if you had a real human being like that, after 2 or 3 months, they'd get used to it, they'd build confidence, and they'd answer more fully, they'd take a little risk, say, well, is this, but it's more risky, and they'd be much more open and frank with you. And ChatGPT is just like that law student. They'd need training and advice and support and positive and negative feedback. And if you do that, they will get better. That's what James said earlier. They will learn from you and they remember what you said, they remember your style, they remember what works, and they'll do better next time.
Brilliant. Any final questions for Imran, Pete, and James before we let them out into the universe again? And we let you all out into the universe again.
Yeah, and welcome thoughts. I know there's a couple of people with their videos on. I usually pick on people with their videos on. So Meryl or Angela, welcome if you want to come off mute, to welcome your thoughts on what you've seen so far. Be interesting to get your views.
Oh, I'm just at the very beginning of my learning curve, so I appreciate this. It's probably been, I have to say, the most helpful session. I mean, I of course copied your link, and we'll be getting with our people who arrange all of our CLE to see if we can do a deeper dive, because we're attorneys. We actually had a meeting about this topic yesterday and whether we really need to move forward with doing what John is already doing with his young people and trying to explore tools. And the consensus was that maybe it's too early. We have client confidentiality concerns, and also not convinced that it could really do anything that we're doing better. But I just think that's sort of, and I completely understand, right? We have to be protective of those things, but I believe there is a capability that we, that exists now, and that's going to exist a year from now, even more exponentially, so that we can absolutely offload some rote tasks that we're doing, to free up our time. But making the business case for that in a law firm is an uphill battle, because all that costs money in terms of opportunity cost of people's time and getting up to speed on these tools and really understanding them. And then purchasing access to these different tools. So, anything I can do to collect arguments for that business case, which I think I've gotten in the last hour. So I appreciate that. I appreciate, anything like that, because I'm not typically an early adopter when it comes to the iPhone model and all that, but this is different. I just see opportunities for us to, like I said, free up more time to be creative and to spend with our clients marketing, instead of, kind of exhausting our brains across the pay scale, frankly, on these rote tasks that we could be offloading.
Excellent.
I would agree with Angela on the creative side. One of the things that we had in our last marketing conversation that really jumped out at me with our marketeers, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, led us on to looking at this AI for marketers session, was it was very interesting to see people like John using ChatGPT and AI to create marketing promotional material that really was different from the standard, more dry marketing content. And I can't remember the lady who spoke in the last call, but she said she actually, used it and was able to come up with something that the lawyers liked, but was not the old dry marketing content that gets out there to clients. And it was just more upbeat, peppy, and sort of changed the mindset of the marketing department and the lawyers as to how to go out and market their firm and their capabilities and the different practice areas that they had to offer.
And that's an interesting one because the AI has come back with something that the team might have missed, right? So it takes things a little bit beyond just using it as a tool to generate content. And I've seen many examples of that so far. I've even seen it in us uploading our Google Analytics website report into ChatGPT and asking it to analyze it. And at first I thought, actually, it's just analyzing our Google Analytics report. But it wasn't. It was going a couple of steps further on things that my entire team had actually missed. So example, it said, okay, actually, you've got a growing number of visitors from Germany. And it actually made a suggestion, right? Have you thought about converting these landing pages to German language? And have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? So it was seeing things that we were unable to see. And the same with the kind of creative components. And I've seen many examples of, and this is where there's a persuasion element, Angela, which is, and this is the argument at the moment: is AI creative? Is it empathetic? Right. So these are deeper questions that we need to answer, but it's showing signs of it, right? So it's really interesting to debate and have a look at where it's going. And it's here now. Where's it going to be in 12 months' time? And we keep saying this one-liner, which is, this is the worst it's ever going to be, right? It's going to continue as it is. I'll get some thoughts from Peter there as well on that.
Yeah, keep your eye on Apple and Apple press releases and Apple product announcements. They're going to put chips and AI software into mobile devices very soon, which of course you don't have to connect to the internet to use them. So you can still fence off the data, but look at the technology companies, look at Forbes, look at Apple and see what they're going to do, and Microsoft to some extent.
Yeah. And the chief executive, and so that's a good one, Peter. Thanks for that, which I missed saying earlier. So I'm pleased you picked it up. So some of the leaders like Jensen, from the chief executive of NVIDIA, which is, it's valuation again, another $1 billion turnover valuation, taken over Intel as a chip manufacturer. It's worthwhile seeing their views on where this is going. And in a recent interview, he came out with and said, actually, our job is, there's going to be no coders in 5 years' time, right? So we've just spent the last 10 years telling our kids that actually coding is the best skill they can have, right? So in the UK, and I'm sure around the world, there's been all these coding academies set up for kids, thinking they need to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, or, this is a skill set they need. But in fact, look where we're going, right? So the changes are vast, and I like the word you used there, Angela, which was something is different about this, right? Which we're not really pinpointing. Even me and the team are really looking at this, thinking, is this really happening? It's almost, this is a real kind of strange feeling, almost like thinking about 20 years ago when I put the first website up on the internet, right? And believe it or not, if you look at interviews from back then, you've actually got people coming out and saying, actually, there's no point having a website. This is just a lot of rubbish, right? So people are coming out saying, this internet thing, it's not going to take off. What's the point of having a website, right? Got a similar thing happening now, which is really fascinating to kind of see the different views. And, you've got to just figure out what your play is in the mix.
One of the points that Merrill made was this session with MMC, and thank you very much, came out of a conversation between Washington, D.C. and Connecticut. And I think we have somebody from Connecticut in the room. I'm not going to drag you out, Becky, because it wasn't you who spoke, but talking about how law firms, legal marketers were already using AI, we thought, well, let's get some AI experts involved. Angela, your point about the business model of law firms. I'm speaking with Hive Legal in Melbourne. They used to be an MI member. I'm trying to entice them back. They've started using AI and they've moved completely to value-based pricing because they're now using AI not just to run their models, but to produce contracts and so forth. And I'm hoping to get them to do a presentation on how they've achieved that. Yesterday, I heard a US law firm called the Beckman firm they're specialist, they're boutique. They're using Lexis AI, which of course is contained within the Lexis world of the legal world, and therefore controlled, is quite expensive. But they have now saving for every 4 hours that research and contract creation took, things are now taking 1 hour, because they're still obviously checking through things. And there was a conversation with their CISO and their managing partner that said, and the interviewer challenged them and said, but what about all those billable hours you've lost? And they said, don't be ridiculous. We're backfilling with new work, with more interesting work. We have started making more money in a very short space of time by losing the grunge work. So there are that is also going to change. And I think the billable hour model, as we touched on at the AGM, is also going to need to change. Maybe it's a question for ChatGPT.
No, I agree. And I think if you really do, almost like the old days where you would do like the time and motion study, you would hear the UPS guy in the police pizza delivery, they were breaking it down. Like, how many minutes does it take to get from this building to this building? You know, I think it's the same. I think we have to do that and understand what percentage of our day is really spent on legal work, like true legal work, analysis, you know, meetings with clients, client facing. I think it's going to be surprising how much of our day we're actually spending on these tasks that we can do a lot better, you know, than we're doing now. I love value billing. I'm a big fan of value billing, and I'm able to do that with some clients, especially where you've got your set of documents already negotiated. This is just a new deal, but the value isn't any lower, right? It's that philosophy, and I think I would love to hear from them, that firm.
Brilliant. Imran, Pete, James, we've blown apart the hour. Thank you so much for giving us even more value and for really being thought-provoking and for bringing people in like that. Any final words of wisdom before we, as I said, we let you out into the universe?
I'll let Peter do the final words of wisdom.
Okay. Well, just builds on what Imran said earlier. There are people who make things happen. There are people who watch what happens, and there are people who watch what happened. Be in the first category. Brilliant. Great talking to you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Very happy to put you in touch with MMC or follow up directly. Follow them on LinkedIn and other channels. And Imran, Peter, James, thank you again, and see you soon.